It is great to have the Nature Boy as a part of Ring of Honor.
Ric Flair is just not going to retire and leave professional wrestling.
Welcome to Jobbed Out, the wrestling editorial that reminds you that to be the man, woo, you gotta beat the debt collectors, or whatever the line is. There's an easy way to gauge the age of your audience with one simple question. We all know WWE has been the #1 North American wrestling promotion of all time, but who's number 2? Newest of new fans know that right now, it's All Elite Wrestling. If you grew up in the 90s, it was WCW. For most of that time in between, the title belonged to TNA, or Impact now. I mean, their ratings were higher than AEW's are now, and they've been around years longer than WCW was. And while there hasn't been any sort of power struggle for #1 since the mid-90s, there was a time when a third brand was challenging for that #2 slot. I won't go too much into the history of Ring of Honor, except for the fact that it began around the same time TNA did, and while the Jarrett-run company drew easy comparisons to WCW, Ring of Honor was the home for those fans displaced by the end of ECW. It was easily devoted to the matches, to work rates. Hell, it felt like years before they even really started doing storylines, save for Christopher Daniels being, well, evil. Ring of Honor had a big problem for many years though, and that problem was money. Relatable, right? TNA was saved by Panda Energy, I guess, but Ring of Honor's income in its early years came mostly from the tape trader community, with RF Video being the big source of income. Eventually, Ring of Honor realized that if it wanted to be bigger than the Fringe Third, and with that score some stability, they had to take a big gamble. Now, it's easy to look back and see the immense amount of talent that came out of this little company, but in order for the whole world to see them, they needed a draw. A big name. Someone that can act as ambassador to turn heads and make people take notice. So they landed themselves a TV deal with HDNet, which hilariously is now known as Access TV, and they began making calls to find that big name to be the face of their company. Enter Nature Boy Ric Flair. 1 year removed from his retirement match at WrestleMania 24, the former 16-time world champion, who had mostly just been used in backstage segments so that he could pick fights with current WWE stars. Huh, sound familiar? Anyway, the Nature Boy needed money, so he took a deal with ROH. ROH even went so far as to name a whole show after him with Stylin' and Profilin'. With the HDNet show kicking off, Ric Flair became the ambassador for the company on May 2nd, 2009.
When the Ring of Honor called me, I didn't have to blink. I didn't have to think for a second. I said, Ring of Honor, Ric Flair, that works for me.
Actually, I'm betting when Ring of Honor called, Ric Flair didn't have to blink. He didn't have to hesitate. He just said, Ring of Honor, woo, how much you gonna pay me? Because a big side effect of decades pounding booze and hounding women is a little thing called alimony. And in Flair's case, $22,000 a month in alimony. Imagine owing $264,000 to other people every year and not having a job. Good frickin' luck. As the new authority figure, Ric Flair endorsed the new Ring of Honor World Champion, Jerry frickin' Lynn.
But back in 1995, you were in a major car wreck a few days before the show. And you still showed up and gutted it out through the pain and taught me a very valuable lesson that night.
And that lesson? Never underestimate the power of back taxes, I tell ya. I mean, hell, even the Joker doesn't mess with the IRS.
I'm crazy enough to take on Batman, but the IRS? No, thank you.
Enter A-Double. Anti-masker Austin Aries himself, who tries to cement himself as a top heel challenger for the belt. The fans, they're just not feeling it. It's a shame too, because at this time, Austin Aries was one hell of a performer, and we didn't yet know what kind of human being he would turn out to be. So Flair nods his approval at A-Double's hustle before their first match of the night, as Chris Hero takes on, holy crap, it's Kenny Omega. Told you they were loaded with immense talent. You'd be surprised how many future stars would come from this company. Hero wins with a roaring elbow using a loaded elbow pad, and we cut to a backstage interview featuring a baby Roderick Strong.
But tonight's not about me.
Next up, deathmatch superstar Necro Butcher squeaks a win over Brody Lee. Yes, that Brody Lee. Followed by a squash match as we head to our main event, Aries against Strong. You'll notice a distinct lack of something as I recap this show, and that something is Ric Flair. Some of this comes down to Ring of Honor's core message of putting the wrestling ahead of the drama, as over the next few episodes, which were all taped on the same day, we would still see Flair, but in singular minor roles. That's not completely why he wasn't prominently featured, though. See, Flair would basically shoot a segment for each show and then disappear. And this caused a lot of tension between Nate and the powers that are paying his bills, as Flair was documented to just leave during these events, even when he was still needed for segments later on, understandably causing loads of backstage issues and quick rewrites. Paid to do a job and then leave halfway through it? I don't blame them for being pissed. They're paying big money on a gamble, and that gamble can't pay off if he doesn't, show up. They did get enough footage to fill spots over the next few weeks, including where he announced a fatal 4-way match for Lynn's world title that would include a future Seth Rollins and a future Daniel Bryan, before abruptly giving up the position and just leaving. But why? Well, Ric Flair will tell you it's because of his close ties with the WWE, which might ring true since he was appearing on WWE television at the same time as ROH. But the larger reason is simple. He was collecting paychecks for events and appearances and then no-showing them. And when he did appear, he was half-assing it and then bailing early. Ring of Honor and its owner at the time, Kerry Silkin, ended up filing a lawsuit later in the year against Flair for breach of contract. But ultimately, the suit was dropped after Sinclair bought the company. As for Flair, he would debut with TNA shortly after, once again, because he needed the money. Ultimately, this was just one big shame, because there's so much hope and buzz around Ring of Honor at the time, and they really thought that the endorsement of a big name and a new TV deal could help them get to that next level. Sadly, Flair just wasn't into it. It showed, as he put so little into the company, and ultimately he wasn't gonna move the needle compared to a name that could actively go, like Kurt Angle or Sting. Ric Flair and Ring of Honor is just a sad footnote in wrestling history, which is a real shame because in better times, under different circumstances, there's no better pairing than the hardest working man the NWA's ever known and the hardest working company America's ever known. Ah well. Of course, this is all just my opinion though, and I want to know, what do you think of Ric Flair's short tenure with Ring of Honor? Would his being an authority figure on the show have convinced you to watch it, or do you think this was just gonna tarnish his legacy? If he had stuck around. Let me know what you think in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for more, because I want you to be a part of this conversation too. For now though, I better get my shoulders off the mat, so thank you for tuning in to Jobbed Out. I'll catch you next time.